It's TK Friday, and today in the joy of editing, I'm doing another full edit. I'm calling this one Set Over Slovakia. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, and welcome to the joy of editing with Dave Kelly. It is TK Friday again, my favorite day of the week. I have another full edit for you, and this image today comes from, and I'm pronouncing this name wrong, I'm sure, Andrej Ilavský. Please forgive me because I'm sure I've pronounced your name wrong. Before we get started, I have some really good news for you. There is a Black Friday sale going on over at the TK web store. It's a 4-day sale. It starts today and it ends on Monday, December 2nd. And you can save 25% off the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. Anything over at the TK web store, including training videos. Sean Bagshaw has some new luminosity masking courses out. I highly recommend them. Plus, Sean has a lot of really great courses at the TK web store. And don't forget, you could get the TK Magic Mixer on sale for 25% off. So everything is 25% off. Use my promo code DK25. When you use that code, I make a small commission. You save 25% off. It's a win-win situation for all of us. So I really thank you for using my code and enjoy the holiday savings over at the TK web store. Before we start, I just want you to know you can download the image as well as the PDF notes and give this edit a try out for yourself. Just go to the description of this video, scroll down through, and you'll find Dropbox links. And also, if you have an image you would like me to edit on a TK Friday, scroll down even further and you will find a Contact Me link. Contact me and we can discuss doing one of your images on a TK Friday. All right, then, let's get started. Now, as always, I start out here in Lightroom. Now, I've done things a little different this time. I wanted to try to do a full edit using the adaptive profile, which I hope comes to Lightroom. It's not here yet, but it is in Camera Raw. But let me show you my workflow when I want to use an adaptive profile and do a TK9 full edit. So I start out here in Lightroom and I make no adjustments on the image whatsoever. This is the image right out of the camera. So I'll just right click on the image, go to edit in, and then come down to the bottom and click on open as a smart object in Photoshop. Now I've already done that. And here we are in Photoshop. Now, the image normally will not look like this. It'll look just like it did in Lightroom, but I've already adjusted this. But all you do once you get into Photoshop is double click on the image icon. That'll send you into Camera Raw. And then what you do, see where it says profile here, click on this drop down and click on Adobe Adaptive Beta. And then you can adjust the amount slider, and I adjusted mine up to 155%. And all I did here was pulled my highlights back, open up my shadows a little bit. As far as optics, I used remove chromatic aberrations, just a slight amount of sharpening on here, no noise reduction. And as far as color is concerned, I did adjust the temperature just a little bit, but I added no vibrance or saturation. And then at that point, I just click OK, and that sends us back into Photoshop. And I think this is a really good starting point for our TK9 edit. Now, I did this edit a little different with this adaptive profile. I wanted to try something out. I didn't do my typical balance and contrast adjustment because I think the adaptive profile did a lot of the heavy lifting for me. So I'm going to try a different approach today. And to do that, I will take advantage of a new feature in TK9 version 3. I'm going to hold my shift key down and click on this brightness contrast adjustment layer button. Hold the shift and click this button and you will get a group called adjust with zones, and we have 5 zones. Zone 1 being the darker tones up to zone 5, and the tones get lighter as they go up. So I thought I would look at each one of those tonal ranges and make adjustments instead of doing my typical balance and contrast adjustment. Now, if you'll note, you see these symbols over here. These symbols are letting us know that we are using blend if on these zonal ranges. Now, I'm on zone 1. If we come to the combo or CX panel and click the double arrow magenta button, you can see where zone 1 is hitting. Isn't that cool? And then click this button again to shut it off. And then you could go to any one of these zones. Like let's go to zone 3 and click this button. You could see where those zones are hitting. So that's pretty nice. So it gives you an idea of the area that you're targeting. So let's go back to zone 1 and make our first adjustment. So I'll come up to the properties panel, and this is a brightness contrast adjustment. This is a shadow, so I want to darken it. So I'm going to drag this slider to the left, and I'm going to take it over to right there, -70, and let's give it a little bit of contrast. So I'll drag the contrast slider to the right, and I think I'll take it to right there, 22. Now let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. See that nice shadow contrast coming in? And now let's go to zone 2. Now when I get to a zone, what I'll do is I'll start with my brightness and I'll drag it to the right or to the left and see what I want to do. You can double click right here on this, let's call it a handle, and reset it. I ended up not adjusting the brightness, but I gave it some contrast. I ended up stopping at 36, so let me shut off this layer. Here's before and here's after. So just some really nice contrast in zone 2. Now let's click on zone 3. This will be more in the midtone range. I just want to lighten it up a little bit, and I think I'll take it right here, 13. Now, do we want to give it any contrast? I don't know. Maybe I'll just take a tiny bit of contrast out. -1. Now let's shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. Now I do like it in the foreground, but I don't like it in the sky. So we could subtract out the sky. Now we could come to the combo or CX panel, click on the sky button. That'll select out the sky. Now that the sky is selected, click on your layer mask calculator, click active selection, and click the minus to subtract the sky. Now, if I click on this double arrow here, we can see the mask, and you'll notice we have the moon in here. We also still have a selection, so I can click this button here to get rid of our selection. But what we can do is click on our black paintbrush and make sure your brush opacity is at 100%. Right now mine's at 30. Type your 0 key, that gives you 100%, and just paint off the moon just like that. And then you can click the double arrow again, and now you'll notice when I shut this layer off, it's only going to the foreground. So here's before and here is after. And now let's click on zone 4. I'll click the double arrow magenta button. Let's see where that zone hits. Okay, so some of the rocks in here, a little bit of these lighter trees in the sky. I don't think I want it in the sky. I don't think so, but we can take care of that. Let me go ahead and click this double arrow again so we can get back to the image. Let me go ahead and lighten this up a little bit. And I think I'm going to go to right there on the brightness, 28. And now let's check out the contrast. Do we want to give this some contrast? Yeah, I think a little bit of contrast, not too much, right here at 13. Let me shut this off. Here's before and here's after. Now, I don't like it in the sky, so here's what we can do. You see zone 3, this mask right here? Hold down your Option or Alt key. Keep it held down, click and drag this up. Now, this message may or may not come up if you've never checked on Don't Show Again. You'll get this message and it'll say, replace layer mask, just click yes. And there's the layer mask right there. So now let me shut this off. Here's before and here's after. And finally, let's go to zone 5. So let's click on zone 5 and let's click the double arrow button again. And this time it's only affecting the moon and these rocks a little bit. So I think what I'll do is, let me shut off the magenta overlay by clicking this button again. I think I'll just lower the brightness a little bit to -12. Now let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. Just tones that moon down very slightly. Now, what if you didn't want to use all these zones? Because nobody says you have to use them all. So just make a zone active and click the trash can and get rid of it. Only use the zones you need. In this case, I used them all. Now, another nice thing is all these zones are inside of a group here. So whenever you hold your shift key down and click on either curves, levels, or the brightness contrast adjustment, you will get the zonal ranges inside of a group. So I can shut this entire group off. Here is before and here is after. So I think we're off to a really nice start. Up next, it's a TK action. If your TK actions aren't open, click your TK button on either the combo or CX panel, and then look for color loom. Click on that, and that is your color luminosity adjustment layer. It lets you adjust all of the luminosity values of your different colors like reds, yellows, greens, cyans, blues, and magentas. And I thought it'd be a nice follow-up to the zone adjustments because we have a lot of nice colors in here that we can adjust the luminosity values of. Let's start out with the reds. So I can drag the red slider to the right to make the reds lighter or to the left to make them darker. And I think I will adjust these to right there, 15, make them a little bit darker. Now let's go to yellows. What I like to do is drag the slider to the right, to the left, and see which way I want to take it. In this case, I want to lighten it a little bit. I'm going to take it to right there, 103. Now let's go to greens, go to the left, go to the right. I think I will go to the left and darken them up a little bit to like -8. Now let's go to cyans. I'm going to lighten it. Let's darken those up a little bit. Let's take it to right there, 47. Now let's go to blues. I think I want to darken the blues up a little bit, and I think I'll take it to right there, -3. And I'm not going to touch the magenta. There's not much magenta in here. Now let's shut this layer off. Here's the before and here's the after. So a nice difference there. I really like that adjustment. Again, before and after. I think that'll be good. Moving on, the next step, I do want to lighten up the midtones in the foreground only, not the sky. Now, I'm going to do it a little differently this time. This is a video for doing things differently. Sometimes you just got to mix things up a little bit, and it kind of breaks the mold, and it gets you to think in new directions. On the multi-mask panel, we're going to click on the luminosity mask button, and instead of using like midtones 1, I'm going to use midtones 2. It's a little more of an aggressive midtone, and instead of outputting it to a curves adjustment layer and using a screen blend mode, I thought I'd use the brightness contrast adjustment. We have the midtones 2 mask, and I'll click this button and we'll output it to a brightness contrast adjustment. Now let's adjust. I'm only looking at the foreground, so I'm going to take the brightness. I want to lighten up those midtones, so I'm going to brighten it up to right there, a whopping 50. And now let's add some contrast. And I'm going to drag this over to 19. Now this is cool because we can combine a midtone contrast and a midtone lightening all with one adjustment layer. That's pretty cool. Let's shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. I like it, but remember, I don't want it in the sky. So what we'll do is I'll click this button on my combo panel to select the sky. You also find that on your CX panel. And now click on the layer mask calculator button, click active selection, click minus to subtract out the sky. And now let's deselect our selection by clicking this button on either the combo or CX panel. Let's click the double arrow button to look at the mask, and we can see the moon is here. And grab your black brush. Not much is selected. Make sure you're at 100% opacity and just paint off that moon. And now we can click the double arrow button again and see the image back. And now let's shut this layer off. Here's before and here is after. But you know what? These rocks are getting a little too light here. So I'm going to take care of that with an old method called mask the mask. And what we're going to do is come to the combo or CX panel and look for this button right here. Click it. This will put this layer in a group with a white mask. Now I clicked on the right side of this button, by the way. If you click on the left, you'll get a black mask, but I want a white mask. And now on the combo or CX panel, click on the black brush and make sure your brush opacity is at 100%. If it's not, type your 0 key, and you want a nice soft edge brush. And all we want to do is paint off these rocks, which have gotten a little too light with that adjustment we just made. And that nice soft edge will really help you. And then you can make your brush smaller as you need to. I'm going to get this rock here too. These rocks down in here, just paint them off. Take your time, but just be careful. But with that nice soft edge brush, I think you'll be okay. No problem here. Painting by hand. We can get brave sometimes. Maybe I'll just get these guys down in here. Okay, I think that's good enough, but you get the idea. Let me shut this layer off. Here is before and here's after, and I think we're okay. Next up, I want to add a little bit of contrast to the rocks in the darker shadow areas, and to do that, we'll use a TK action. If your actions aren't open, click the TK button in either the combo or CX panel and look for paint contrast. Click on that. A color picker comes up. I'm just going to drag this down to black. I want a dark contrast just in the shadows, so I'll click OK, and now we can just go ahead and paint. Now I want to lower my brush opacity down to like 30%, so I'm going to type my 3 key, and all I want to do here is paint this contrast on. So I'm going to start to paint on the shadow areas of the rocks. You see that? Just to bring out some of the shadows. It'll pretty much stay away from white tones. It's only going to paint darker tones, or darken down darker tones when you paint. Now, when you lift your brush and paint again, as I always say, you will build up the effect. It'll get a little bit stronger. Let's come down in here and paint some of these guys over in here. And take your time. Let's paint across here. And you could vary your brush size. You don't want to get it too big because you're kind of hand painting this. You're not using a mask to help you. And I think it's going to be pretty good. Let me just get this a couple more times. Let me shut this layer off. Here is before and here's after. See that nice contrast? That's all we want. Now, that was sure fun. How about another TK action? If your actions aren't open, again, click a TK button on either the combo or CX panel. And this time, we want Make It Glow. So let's click on our Make It Glow action. A Gaussian blur comes up. Just click OK, and we get some nice glow, a little bit of a color pop. Now, it's too strong. I'm going to come to my layer opacity, click right here, and drag it back to like right there, 55%. Let me shut this off. Here's before. And here is after. Boy, I like that. The next thing I want to do is add some detail to the image. Not too much, but just a little bit of detail. So to do that, on either the combo or CX panel, click the Camera Raw button. That'll take us into the Camera Raw filter. It'll stamp all our layers together, turn it into a smart object, which is awesome. This way, if we ever need to go back in and make a readjustment, we can back into the Camera Raw filter. And what we want to do is click Effects. And what I want to do is add some texture, and I will just add a little bit, like 20. And for clarity, I'm going to add just a little clarity, not too much. We're going to go up to 10. And for dehaze, I'm going to bring this up to 5. If you click this button right here, you can see there's the before and there's the after. And then just click OK. This brings us back into Photoshop. I'll shut this layer off. Here's before. And here's after. I really like it, and I'm going to leave it on the entire image. And now I turn my attention to the moon that is setting. Now this step you can leave out if you want to, but I just want to increase the size of the moon just a little bit because you know what? It is kind of the star of this image, so let's increase its size a little bit. We'll use the object selection tool, so I'll click on the object selection tool. I'm in the rectangle mode. I have this set up for sample all layers, hard edge. What I want to do is just come here, click and drag and select this moon. Now there's a little ring around that moon, a little bit of a glow. I can go ahead and zoom in here so we can see it. See that little bit of a glow right around the moon. So we want to get that. So what we're going to do is on the Combo CX panel, see this button right here? We can expand the selection. So let's click this button and I want to expand it 50 pixels. You can type in 50 and click OK. See how that expands it? And now we want to put this on its own layer. So hold your Command or Control key down and then type your J key at the same time. And you will jump that up to a new layer. Now everything looks the same because we have not increased the size yet. I went ahead and zoomed in even more because what we want to do now is transform this moon to make it bigger. So what we want to do is click on this button on the Combo CX panel and you see the bounding box around here. Hold down the Option or Alt key and at the same time click on any one of the 8 different handles and we can drag it bigger. So let's make it bigger, maybe somewhere right around here. That's not going to be too big, I don't think. Right there, and then type your Enter or Return key. And then what we want to do is add a mask to this layer. So click this button right here. We'll add a white mask. Click on the black brush button and make sure the opacity is at 100%. If it's not, type your 0 key. And now with a nice, decent sized brush with a nice soft edge, 0% hardness, what we want to do is just smooth this out and blend this in. We want to keep that ring around the moon. You see that? So we're just going to paint around here and see that ring is staying intact. And that nice soft edge is going to really blend that nicely. So right like that. Now let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. See, it's a little bit bigger. Now I'm going to click this button to go back to fit to screen, or I actually wasn't at fit to screen before. I was actually at this size. Now we can see the moon is bigger. Let me shut this off. Here's before and here's after. So if you want that bigger moon, you could get it. Now, I just like to tone that moon down a little bit on the very highlights. So what I'm going to do is click on my color grading tool button and get a color grading tool and click this paper clip button. That'll clip it to the layer just below it and click on highlights. And what I want to do is just pull back on the highlights a little bit back to right there, -8. Let me shut this off. Here's before. Look at the moon, and here is after. It just tones it down slightly. One more step and we're done. When I look at the image, there might be a slight lightening around the edge up here. Let's go ahead and tone that down. I need to get to my multi-mask panel, so right now my color grading tool is in the way. I'll click the X to close the color grading tool. Nothing changes on color grading layers. We're going to use a new feature in TK9 version 3, and that is a half edge mask. So what we want to do is hold your Command or Control key down and click this button right here. This will give you a half edge mask. What we want is a light edge, so we're going to click light. We're going to use this default radius, but you see that light edge? That'll target the edge for us. So we're going to click OK. And what we want to do is output that to a burn tool. So I'm going to click on the right side of the burn tool. You could use the left side. It doesn't really matter. And we will be burning through a selection. Right now, my brush opacity is 100%. I'm going to type my 3 key to get us to 30%. And with a nice small soft edge brush, I'm just going to paint over this edge, just like this. And see, it'll just tone down any halo around here. And that's all you need to do. Now, this won't always work on an edge. It works on this edge because there's color here. If there was no color here, we would have to resort to something like a clone stamp tool in the darker blend mode. But for this, it works out nice. So let me shut this off. Here is before, and here's after. See, it just really tones down that edge. Now, let's see where we started from. We actually started from here. This is the image right out of camera, and now we end up here. But remember that Lightroom dark image, I sent that into Camera Raw and used the Adobe Adaptive Profile. And remember also I made some minor adjustments in Camera Raw. And then I sent it back to Photoshop. And now let me click my before after button on my combo panel. So then at that point we started out here. And now we end up here. And I'm really happy with this result. And I do hope that you give this edit a try. Download the image and the PDF notes. Well, there it is, everyone. Another TK Friday comes to a close. I hope you enjoyed today's full edit. And don't forget about the Black Friday sale starting today, ending Monday. Save 25% off your entire purchase. Use my promo code DK25 during the sale. If you enjoyed today's tutorial, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. Click that bell notification icon. Click all so that you'll receive all notifications. And then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. And I will see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing.